Howdy, howdy. Oh, I'm getting attacked. Welcome to this platinum review. So I have platinumed Dead Island 2, and I thought I'd I want to talk about it. As you do. Um, Talking a little bit about how difficult it was to platinum the game, which honestly wasn't too bad compared to other games. I think most people can do that. And just talking about the game in general after spending so much time. So I have turned the sound off. See. I'm just doing it. I'm doing it. Those reviews, people just have random gameplay in the background, but I actually am controlling it. See, look. Yeah, you can hit the fire hydrants. I didn't realize that for a long time. Not that it really does too much, but, pretty cool. So yeah, should you buy the game? I think you should. If you have any doubts, just wait for it to be on sale. That'll happen eventually, and you'll get your money's worth. In my book, definitely will get your money's worth. That said, it helps a lot if you enjoyed the first games. Dead Island and Dead Island Riptide, pretty basic. If you like killing zombies, you'll enjoy the game. It's really fun, just killing zombies at the base level. It feels good. Oh god, get off me, get off me. It feels good. And that's what, gaming is all about. Having a gameplay experience that feels good. And I like, the progression, getting different types of elements of weapons and things, and the sort of working out how to defeat the stronger enemies, more efficiently. Getting, guns and stuff, and then... And I think the world itself is good. Now, it's not that it's a perfect game. I do think there's little things here and there that can improve. But that said, with 2 expansions in the pipeline, I think once they're both out, it will be, one of the best ever zombie games. Now, again, how high are the hurdles for the best zombie games? It kind of depends on which sort of genre you're leaning towards. But I think it's up there. There's really no doubt in my mind about that. I really like the gameplay, and I really feel like if they could bring the gameplay to the original, back to Dead Island 1 and Riptide, it'd make those games so much better. But, you know, it's the progression of time. Now, is it progressed enough? Is it modern enough? Well, it's sold over 1 million copies already. I mean, the first 3 days it sold 1 million copies. So, take that what you will with, the gaming market and actually having a game that's released that actually works. But, I keep getting distracted. You can hear my controller because I've got the sound. It's so bad. Let's just... Okay. Okay, let's just talk. Because the alarm's on and you can't hear it. Oi! Okay. Let's chat. Let's chat. So, Platinum. The main challenge is really... Just do the challenges. So if you do the combat challenges, pretty much all of them, I'd say, most of them, and same with survivor, weapon, and zombie challenges, you'll get all the trophies. Now, there's a couple that are just from mission progression, so stuff like, beating all the main missions, finding all the lost and found weapons and the missing people. Just doing all of the missions will get you there. You don't have to do all the challenges, which is something that I think would make it a lot harder, because there's a couple survival challenges that are just ridiculously... I mean, they just need a lot of work. Like, you just need to put in a huge amount of time for those. Or just farm them in the most efficient way. But again, it still takes a bit more thought than just killing zombies. So, yeah, for the most part, they're alright. You'll get that done. If you play the game enough, you should be able to get that done pretty quick. I wouldn't say... if you really focus on getting the platinum, I think you could get it under 40 hours. Easy. Yeah, if you really focus on it. Let's switch to a weapon that doesn't just... Oh, actually, we'll go here. Bam. What else is there to say? I think the game is worthwhile. I think the game is good. I platinumed the game, but I haven't platinumed the game in a long while. It's generally not one of my preferred things to do because it feels a little bit unnatural at times to over-focus on them. But at the same time, in this case, I only had a couple challenges to do to get to platinum after just doing all the challenges in-game. So it was like, I looked at the trophies and went, wait a second, I've nearly got platinum. And then went, I'll just finish that off then. So it was definitely an afterthought, which is a good thing, I think, in terms of building a game in a way that's not too much of a grind in terms of the minutiae of challenges in the PlayStation trophy system. Bam. Does he respawn in here? No, okay, that's good though. Bam. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just do the challenges. You get the platinum, not too bad. There's some areas for zombies you have to farm. I've got plenty of guides on my channel. You know, you can find lots of harder to find or farm ones. Again, there's always more options. I just, I do prefer daytime. I do prefer to be outdoors for the most part. So the guy's sort of centered around that approach. Better dum dum dum. So yeah, you kill zombies. Pretty much, best way to describe Dead Island 2. You kill zombies. Now, there's a bit of criticism, so I suppose I'll leave it to this point of the video to actually talk about some of the criticisms of the game, just because I don't think many of them have much weight, to be perfectly honest. I mean, they looked at it with a different lens. So I look at this game from the lens of the original games plus a little bit more, because I wasn't expecting a huge improvement. I wasn't expecting a complete revolution of the game and some sort of unrealistic modern creation which just hasn't occurred in any game, to be perfectly honest. So it's this hope and dreams that game reviewers and content creators and all that and game players all have about where games are going in the future and how it's just taken a while. So we're kind of, small steps, I think. And this game does make some big steps. So it's kind of like, I think... Can I climb that? I can't. Let's go up here. Yeah, this makes sense. Yeet. So yeah, do quests. There's not much more to say really. I mean, people's expectations are a product of their own, a manifestation of their own perceptions of the reality and the transformation of games over time, and the improvement that they expect to see. Again, minimum expectations are raised over time, and fairly or unfairly, game developers have to find a way to manage the expectations, which I think is pretty much the most important part of marketing. in the modern world is managing expectations and not blowing them out of proportion and making them totally, wholly unrealistic, and then putting so much pressure on the game devs to live up to some unrealistic vision of the game, and then they end up stretching themselves too thin and they make a game that seems unfinished because they've tried to meet the expectations that were sort of artificially induced by their own marketing. So again, marketing companies need to understand games a lot more and be a bit more realistic at times, which is, I think a totally fair criticism. You may disagree, who knows? Tell me in the comments. Pew. Oh, let's go into the water. But, Dead Island 2 is a zombie killing game. So you play the whole game and you kill a whole bunch of zombies. And there's, variants and different sorts of bosses, different sorts. Maybe there could have been more, which there will be in the expansions. I think there's no doubt about that. We'll see, though. I could be wrong. But from the game point of view that killing zombies is, you get bored of it, I have no idea what AngryJoeShow is talking about in that regard. Let's just be frank about it and just call it out for what it is. Okay, you don't want to kill zombies anymore? That's fine. In my mind, zombie games have not been overdone in the slightest. In my mind, I'm still waiting for the perfect one. So it's like every sort of game genre, I think that it hasn't been done perfectly. None of them have. And there's always, room in the future for them to develop more and to be more. And I think particularly in the case of zombie games, I feel like the scope and the scale of the world building itself can be more, and the worlds can be more. So again, that's where I hope, Unreal Engine 5 goes in terms of maybe making a zombie game that is like a whole country. I know there's small countries out there, but you're trying to, you get what I mean, right? This a grander scale, and I do want to have a giant zombie game with 10 million zombies in the map, but they're not infinite. So you can actually make giant death machines and giant grinding things and like clean the whole area and then try and it's just like a survival game. Plus it has 10 million zombies. So it's kind of, I do hope that this sort of stuff can happen in the future, and I do want. Again, the one thing that we're always missing, which we get it in sort of small indie games, is I want to be a zombie. Which may be a very strange thing, but I want to, at the start, I want to be at the start of the infection. I'm so sick of games. Every game's after the infection. I want to be at the start. And the fear and the panic sets in and the realization that something is really drastically going wrong. And this early stages and, how many people survive and having like a... Which I did think that they would do this in GTA, but they never did. But, maybe there's some mod that somewhat simulates it. But having a world transform from the peaceful, idyllic, or whatever vision of reality you see to, this post-apocalyptic. Actually having the transformation occur. And then your actions can change where you end up. So you could have, over the course of 5 days, or 6 days, or 7 days, or, just a week. 7 days you could have a period of time in which you can take action and you can escape, you can get supplies, or you can build a defensive base or a defensive vehicle to escape, and you can have more of a 7 days to die in Unreal Engine 5, but with this transformation of the whole world at the same time. So it's I want a before and after, though. I do want a before, and you can make decisions knowing how the infection spreads, and it could be random. It could be you could actually stop it. So it could have 1,000 people get infected, but they're all within a certain area, and you can stop the chain of infection and actually stop the whole zombie outbreak, which would be very interesting in my mind. But maybe from a game developer point of view, that could be harming the experience. But this is the sort of thing I think about. I think this is. I think that there's future and bigger scope. And I do want to have planes, and I do want to have decisions. So say the planes are out of fuel, where do you land? A lot of stuff that I feel like like Walking Dead TV show sort of covers a bit of this here and there with your movement and the movement of the zombies around the world, depending on sounds and things, and a grander game. which I think we're still probably 10, 20 years away from, which is incredibly sad. But then again, maybe I'm just being pessimistic. So I can see a future in a much, much more developed game, a much more developed world and experience that is more immersive, that is more, you actually have family at the start, you've got to try and make sure they don't die sort of situation. I think that could be tremendously positive in terms of your feeling of ownership in the world. And I do want to say in this game, Dead Island 2, I would have liked a base. We could make a base. We had like our own little base. And we can, add stuff to it and like have a bowling alley in it. We actually do bowling, or, little mini fun games like that, or zombie bowling, where the zombies are there and you got to bowl. They could have done a lot of gimmicky things, which they don't need to necessarily focus on because they've got to actually deliver the game. I can understand that. But in future, there's room for a bit more zaniness, like Dead Rising style. I think Dead Rising's combat, I still think is woeful, and it's always been woeful. It's probably the worst part about the game. And I feel like the gameplay here is really strong, but it's still, I feel like the weapons aren't quite as zany as they could be. So again, without just ripping them straight off Dead Rising, I'd like some more in the expansions, some more creative weaponry. And I feel like some of the mods, the more expensive mods, they're much better. So I kind of feel like I want to reduce the cost of some of those, because it doesn't encourage me to use them as much, because it's like, the cost is so high. Maybe I'll find a better weapon. I don't really want to waste it on a weapon early. And then you go to the end, you're already end game, you're max level, and all your weapons are good anyway. So it's kind of like, do I need that extra effect? And then when you do it, you're like, yeah, it's all right. So again, more craziness, more zaniness. I'm sort of going around in circles and things. But I do think, again, that, zombie genre hasn't been overdone in the slightest. I don't think any genre has. I mean, just in terms of studios finding a groove and trying to not being able to free themselves from it and break through and innovate, totally understandable. But there is always difference, so I don't subscribe to that sort of thing. And again, this game is about killing zombies, but you can do it differently. You are the agent of change in terms of the gameplay experience. You have options, and you get lots of options. So you can, simultaneously have options and simultaneously make the same decision every time. Sure. You're in control. But, it's up to you at times. And I feel like that kind of game is sort of torn between the two elements of wanting choice and then not knowing what to do with choice, or just feeling like choice is a burden, because again, they feel a curated experience done really, really well is fantastic. And then a hands-off, laissez-faire approach done okay isn't that good. But if it's done really well, it is really, really good. So it's kind of like this straddling the lines between choice and freedom. And again, that comes down to the player. So yeah, Angry Joe, don't agree with some of those points in his review. I felt his review was terrible, really. And again, he sort of cuts out a bit of the game as well. So there's a lot of stuff that happens after you beat the game in terms of the mission variety, and some of the missing persons missions and the lost and found missions are very emotionally, they're a bit more touching than some of the story elements. Some of the story ones are still good, but some of them are more profound in terms of their, again, the design on one side is, not too crazy, but the actual writing and the characters are a lot more impactful, and there's a bit more weight in some of those stories. So again, if you don't do those, you kind of maybe feel the game is a little bit shallower when it does have depth, and you read a lot more of the lore things. And again, it is what it is. Everyone's experience is different, and they have perceptions and things they come in with, which is totally understandable. But I mean, you could just say all FPS games, you just shoot people, so they're all just the same game. You could say that. You could just be like, just another shooting game. Oh, another shooting game. And then again, you could say Call of Duty. Oh, just another COD game. They're all the same when they're all completely different. And that's being a lifelong COD fan and being sort of disappointed that they don't actually build upon each other as much as they do, because they move from studio to studio and they actually regress. And they go back and tread the old ground in different ways. So they do seem to be coming back to the same similar basis, but then different bases, and they take time. Each one of them takes time to get to a certain point, rather than building on the previous one and actually going further. They just end up in a cycle of not getting as far again and again and again. So it's a very different thing. It's hard. It's just stupid to say there's the repetition there, because again, everything's much more grey. I'm sort of going off on tangents and talking about the old boy Angry Joe. But yeah, I did think his 6 out of 10 was not. I think that was a bit harsh. But that said, he's on PC, and it's a PC review, even though he doesn't specify PC review, which he should, because again, performance issues, I haven't had any. So it's like, yeah. So graphical bugs, tiny ones, only a couple of times in my whole playthrough, and I played 80 plus hours. So yeah, on PS5. So PS5 performance perfect, I'd say. Network stuff, again, my own fault, because I've got multiple things going on, and I totally understand. And then that's it. I've been disconnected and then just joined straight back into the same game with a random person, a couple minutes later. So I've got no worries in terms of performance. So portraying the game that it has bugs in it, or that it's unfinished, I think is disingenuous. But at the same time, you just got to specify it's a PC review and all that sort of stuff. Just going off on going off. Yeah, I mean, just be honest and say it's a PC review, and then just look at the landscape and go, that matters. It matters a lot, saying if it's PlayStation or Xbox or PC. It's just, yeah, half of the review is just saying you're on a different thing. To be perfectly frank, the 3-player online thing I think is fine. I would have liked 4, but we'll see what happens with the arena. If they add an arena, we'll see what they do. The expansions, I'm not sure. Again, keeping expectations within some sort of realistic vein. Yeah, I mean, it is that same old story. Oof. What do you want? What do you get? What are you happy with? You satisfied? Never. It's just... Ah. All right. Anything else? So we get to platinum. I feel like the reward for platinum should be there should actually be a reward on PlayStation's side. I do think they could do a lot more in that sphere. I feel as though, yes, it's good. Yes, you can post on Reddit you did platinum. That's all cool. I don't mind that at all. But I think Sony could, come up with something. They could come up with, maybe it's a discount. Maybe it's just credit, store credit. Like, it doesn't have to be $100. It can be, what's reasonable? Like $10? I think $10 is pretty damn good. I'd take $10 as store credit for doing platinum in a game. Again, some games are smaller than others, so I think you could take that into account. Maybe, say, indie games, you could be like $5, or maybe it would sort of destroy the whole PlayStation economy. But who cares? It's all about getting more players, incentivizing people to play games. So I think if you, without having to just the games are good, they'll play them. Maybe the games are good, they'll play them, and then they get to a point where they go, all right, what else have I got to do in the game? Because I enjoy it, yeah, but is there anything I can do? Anything I can aim towards? Any goals I can try and meet? And then go, oh, I can get platinum. And then, oh, that means I get $5 or $10. Oh, again, currencies and all that sort of stuff. We can, you can go in the minutiae of detail on that side of things. But I do think at times, the reward is just playing the game, because you paid money and you got a game that was good and you had fun and spent hours playing it. I think that's totally true. But then, oh, I can't open it. Then, though, Sony side of things, you could do a bit more. Maybe just a discount. So I think it's kind of like store credit kind of implies that you be able to get some small games or contribute to a bigger game, make it cheaper. Maybe make you more likely to buy a game that's more expensive because you're getting $10 off. Same with the discounts. So either the discount would be maybe you could just do it for whatever's on sale, or it could be things that aren't on sale. But, I think it's interesting to talk about. I do want them to be a bit more proactive. I do think the PlayStation Plus catalog, the, extra stuff, the bigger game, sort of the Game Pass equivalent, is getting better and better. So it has improved a lot. In, honestly, the last couple of months, really, it's improved. So it's getting better and better and better. I do think most games will end up there eventually in some form, or just discounts on, PlayStation Plus exclusive discounts and stuff. And that's a good thing, because it does, eventually it will be comparative in, I suppose, in terms of modern games to the Xbox Game Pass, but then it probably won't be as comparative in terms of the older games. Again, because you need the PlayStation 3 library. And much more PlayStation 1 games, PlayStation 2 games. But, it is what it is. I've got plenty of games I wish they had on there. But back to Dead Island 2. I talked about a whole bunch of stuff. Criticism where it's fair. All right. I think this is where we can talk criticism. So this isn't a max character. I'm just playing through for fun again on Jacob. So this is autophage, I think, is where you could criticize the game in terms of variety. I thought each Slayer should have their own autophage, but they're all the same. There's a standardized autophage across them all, which I was a bit disappointed. Having said that, the full thing is so powerful, I can kind of understand, but that's where I want more variety. Again, we can have much more cards in the expansion stuff. You can do a lot more different cards. I think there's just a bit more. I think weapon specific cards might be better. So things that focus on, say, blunt weapons. But everything maims now. The focus on, so we have Bulldozer, and we have Headhunter, and we have Maiming, and we have Frenzy. So we have, and then we've got Sharpshooter and Tactical and stuff. So I think these weapon categories could be used to, they could revolve, they could have some association with certain skills. I feel as though the skills would benefit, and the weapons would benefit if there was a bit more of a interconnected relationship, not just health from maiming and stuff like that. But I do think it'd be nicer. And again, you talk about what skills we could use. You could add some funny ones, like different martial arts. I think would be good in terms of just normal skills. Like you could have the crane kick sort of stuff. You could have a suplex. You could have. I think you could do more with countering. So we do have the, when the zombies grab you, you can auto resist that later on. But I feel like you could do a counter for that, and then just, you do a suplex, or maybe that's a bit heavy in terms of if there's multiple zombies around you. But we do get the invincibility frames with counter, so might as well just go more on that. Bam. And then, of course, the natural progression of these games is you get more buildings you can go inside. And I do feel as though a lot of these buildings, I'd like to be able to go, like here's a good example. I like to be able to go in and then go upstairs and then have more people to save, I think. And then I don't mind. I know we probably have a divisive discussion about how Dead Rising, having to escort people back to the safe house is such a chore, and that they get surrounded, and all that sort of stuff. But I like that. I like that. Even though it's a pain at times, I do think it adds a different dimension. So I'd like to see a little bit more, you know, in terms of mission variety, they could add a couple of things here and there in the expansion. So you could have, you know, some escort stuff and just some different zany things, which again, they've set the solid foundation and they can build upon that and they can do a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, I'm just crapping on. Yeah, it's just because the platinum isn't that hard. So, you know, it's one of those ones where it's like, yeah, you can do it. Anyone can do it. You don't need to be a platinum hunter or, you know, a super special gamer with awesome skills. You just do the challenges and you can work it out. Vehicles you talk about. I wouldn't mind a bicycle. I'd take a bicycle. But then again, you know, it's a different dynamic and there's no cars in this. I don't mind if they don't. Honestly, in the end, if they don't feel as though it'll add anything to the game, it'll trivialize things like, you know, driving cars. Dead on one, and you're just smashing into the bigger zombies and just running over the big tank dudes in the straitjackets, just running them over with the car. Oh. And then more funky sort of stuff. You know, we're talking about, you know, lightsabers and laser weapons and all sorts of things that just sort of add a bit of spunk, a bit of cool, you know, a bit of weirdness, you know, a bit more creativity. Which again, you set a solid foundation, you can build on that, you can add all that sort of stuff. And the flesh system could be used a bit more. I feel like, I don't know. I mean, you could do stuff really, really gross things, of course, but like, you know, grabbing the intestines out of a zombie and then, you know, using it to catch another zombie with like a lasso. You know, there's plenty of stuff to think of. Yeah. What haven't I covered in this ridiculously long rant? I think the game is really good. Can we just slide into that? There we go. Hug me. They might need to nerf the block in terms of your ability to block exploding dudes from like point blank range. Jacob has crazy health and defense. Like, crazy. Probably more. I hope they do it with the expansions. It probably won't, but I would like the Slayer specific their arcs to have a bit more depth in terms of where they go in future, because a lot of them have things, aspirations and dreams and things they were trying to do by leaving. So I do feel as though they need some sort of resolution, which would be nice. I don't know, not a must, but it would be nice if, you know, say Ryan, as an example, he's trying to get back to his brother. So it'd be interesting to see if he, like, you get to a point where you do get like a phone call and you can call him, and then you find out that, you know, the zombies have spread everywhere else and like he's about to die or something. You know, something morbid like that maybe, but yeah, just, and then like the Paralympic competition with Amy and the tryouts are like been cancelled. They're just something, little things, just sort of wrap things up a little bit better, or in terms of the, you know, the feelings of the people who survived and what's going to happen next. How long can they survive? So I wouldn't mind some sort of, say, an expansion. You get like, you can gather everyone up, all the survivors. You got to get them all to say, I don't know, a boat or the airport. They're all going to try and leave by the airport, and like the airport could be like a whole area, which would be really sick, I think, because it has so many zombies and things. And it's just like on the runway trying to get onto a plane again, but like first you got to disable the like the military's like rocket defense system they got to shoot down planes. So you got to like take out the SAM sites. I think that'd be really interesting. It's just sort of, I want to have some stakes in terms of the survivors can die depending on how well you do. I'd like a bit of that. I know it's a bit of a pain at times, and people can be like, "Oh no, I lost that many people," and all that sort of stuff. But I'd like a little bit of consequences here and there. And then of course we've got the bad guys we've got to beat up, or the ultimate bad guy we've got to defeat. So it'll be interesting to see if we go further underground or what happens there. So yeah, there's just a lot. See, look at me actually playing the game. What am I doing? I think yeah, we'll sell that. Sell that pistol as well. Trash. Yeah, so I do want a base. I do want a bit more interaction with the world at times. I do have a grand vision of where zombie games can go in the future, and I'm absolutely not limited in my expectation of them actually going even bigger and being a grander thing. So I do think a lot about the Dark Souls to Elden Ring type thing and how that can be applied to other games, and I do think there's room for that. But that said, it's really Dark Souls to Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, really, because you have the areas you're not supposed to go to yet, and you gradually open them up. So again, more like Zelda and that sort of stuff. I'd like to go up there too, to the Hollywood sign. So I think, finding reasons to open up more areas wouldn't be too hard at all. And then they've just got to, build the areas, which again, because they're smaller instances, I think much easier than, expanding an open world. So the future is bright. All right. Let's sort of round things up a little bit. The future is bright. The game actually released, so the impossible's already happened. We've already defied the critics and actually having the game come out. So yeah, anything's possible. Anything's possible. And yeah, just tell me what you think. What do you think of the future of zombie games? What do you think about people reviewing games and saying that they're repetitive when that's just the nature of the whole genre. The nature of the game itself is repetitive. Okay, that's yeah, I suppose, but a lot of games are repetitive. Nothing wrong with that. Again, I was getting the same circle about any game which has any choice at all, and players choose to do the same thing again and again and again and say the game's repetitive. It's like, whatever. Just PC review it. Say you got a PC review. Put that in your title, and we're all good. Then you can just I won't complain. So ridiculous. So easy to cast aspersions about games and their performance and bugs and things, because everyone has such different experiences, even on the same systems. You still have people like I played Cyberpunk 2077, and I had bugs and crashes and things. And I was on PS5 because I got PS5 early. Some luck involved, and so I didn't have nearly the issues, and actually played through the game. And it's one of the best stories. A bit more, but still one of the best stories and some of the best side quests in gaming. So it's I wish they ironed out the performance to the point it was awesome, but at the same time I was still able to have a fantastic experience, and some of the story stuff is just insane. Really emotionally challenging at times. It's just incredible. But, again, you just cast an aspersion and whatever. Whatever. Oh, God, I've talked for ages. I just can't shut up. I can't stop. Yeah, what else to talk about? Dying Light 2 is a great game. I don't know why people are saying it's awful. I don't really understand that logic. Yes, it's not as good as maybe the expectations, and it's more Euro jank than maybe it should be at times, but it is, Techland. What do you expect? But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of this retrospective dislike of games based on very, very small elements, and it's kind of like, sure, the story, Dying Light 2, I feel like the ending I didn't agree with. The nature of the story at times I didn't agree with, but that said, it was much more light than the previous Dying Light 1, so I do think they improved in that regard. I think the characters are okay, but then some of the moral decisions and the way it framed the characters prior to those choices sort of left you a bit lost and a bit like, what the heck? How did I get this ending? How did I get... Why did we go this here? Why did we suddenly change faction just on one decision that really we made out of the kindness of our heart? Which is just like, you have to be very dogged to stick with one faction. It's weird like that. But that said, the movement is fantastic, and the glider and the flying, and with the broom and stuff, and it's just it is fantastic. It is an amazing game. So I don't want to like. I think feel like the criticism of games sort of ignores the achievement of the game itself, and the way it's been designed and actually works and all that sort of stuff. I feel like they kind of look past that, and it's like, no, you can't look past that, because so many games just don't get made or don't get finished or get delayed permanently. That does happen. So again, you got to work with what's tangible. You got to work with what's in front of you, and at the same time appreciate what's in front of you at times. But then again, expectations are what they are. Can't control them. Marketing controls them, or people just have ridiculously stupid expectations and they fall flat every time, and they're always disappointed and act like gaming has gotten worse, which is just not the case at all. Has it risen to the heights of your expectations? Never, and never will. But Elden Ring being the exception, which met people's expectations and exceeded them, but then they'll still criticize repetitive dungeons and catacombs and things. But then it's like, my experience, did them all once, and then don't go back into catacombs, because the rewards aren't worth it. A lot of the things you get from it aren't worthwhile. So it's like, why would I ever go back in them? So it's kind of an issue with, again, repetitive open world games. No, they're not repetitive. You've got a totally different build every time. You have to be different. If the obligation is on you. They give you the same sort of thing, and you've got to be the part that's changing and evolving and getting stronger, which you are. So it's kind of disingenuous to assert that. But that said, you want a structured experience, and it takes your hand, goes from A to B to C to D. You get yourself Last of Us Part 2, and you get no choices. No story choices, which they could have easily incorporated, which would have made the game 10,000 times better. Just give me choice. Give me choices here and there. And a bit more of this before, the coincidental bull crap happens, where you just miraculously survive this explosion or that thing there, or that gunshot there, and then that ambush there, ambush A, B, C, D, E, all 10 million ambushes that you miraculously survive. Give me wait a second, maybe this is an ambush. And sort of you can cut it off from happening, the cinematic happening in a way that makes no sense whatsoever. You could actually be a bit more, this doesn't look good, and then a bit more of this intuitive human beings in a somewhat realistic world approach. But that said, that could apply to a lot of games. Again, endings do matter a lot, so having choices in endings I think is good. More choice. Always more choice in my mind. Always more. Let the players choose. Let them bear the responsibility for their decisions, because they actually had a choice of what is in front of the decision. So they could, kill the bad guy at the end, or kill the person there for fighting the whole game because they wanted to revenge the entire time. They could get the choice. But you want curated experiences because you think the game devs can write it in a way that makes people feel fulfilled in repeat playthroughs, even though they're doing the same thing again and again and again. Re-releasing old games and all that sort of stuff. But again, you know, it's a dynamic world. We could see what happens, but surely there is room for more choices and more, difference in the outcomes. Again, I know that the complication, depending on where you put the choices, can be a bit ridiculous at times, but I do think the value added is tremendous. But then sometimes there's sort of this pretend alternate. So do I really have a choice? And then it is the illusion of choice, which is the most disappointing thing when you find out that it is an illusion of choice. So it's kind of, yeah. So it's kind of straddling the lines between the two because, if you have an open world game, I think there is room for you make a decision and the building blows up and then you can't go in that building again. It's destroyed and it's a mangled heap. And like actually having an impact on the world, I think should be easier. And not necessarily, characters living or dying, although that'd be great too, in terms of getting rid of side missions and things like that. And this sort of relationships in a dynamic environment with NPCs where they actually, because this happened, they actually treat you differently, which has been done before in games. The one step forward, two steps back. I think again, the focus on graphics is sort of maybe limited things here and there in terms of the progression of the innovation in terms of storytelling and immersion, as it were. But yeah, goddamn, I just don't. Yeah, what do you think? What do you think about gaming? Because I see a lot of positives. I've always been one to, when new PlayStation comes out, PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3, PlayStation 3 to PlayStation 4, I'd trade away all the old games and then get store credit and get a whole bunch of new games, I would move on because, again, as much as not every old game can be played in infinite, a lot of them you play them and then you have to stop. You're just like, I've had enough of that. Skyrim being the perfect example. I played that so much, I just can't play it anymore. I just can't. And it doesn't matter what mods you put on. I've done it. I've done Skyrim. It's done. It's over. And it's like, so that sort of flies in the face of your forever game ideology. Thinking there's a game you can play for all eternity. No. I just can't do that. I need to move on. Different game. And then you move on to games that aren't as good. It is what it is. But at the same time, they're their own game. So it's kind of this comparison is always the enemy of objective criticism. But it's understandable. I don't think there's anything wrong. It is what it is. You're always going to compare A to B to C to D. You're always going to compare the games because that's just your experiences. You're comparing your experiences and sort of framing them in that regard. So if you only ever played the best games reviewed on every single YouTube channel and every website and only the best games, then you try something different and then suddenly you think, oh, all the other games are crap. Or all the game is ruined. It's like, no. Games are good. Again, you just need to see them for what they are. And if you can do that, and you actually appreciate that, and you enjoy the basic, then the future's bright. And always is bright. Because there's always games coming out. So it's like one of those things where, what happens if they just stop making them? Because everyone said they're all terrible and the gaming it's all ruined, and all the game devs are like, oh, I've heard modern gaming is dead. Modern gaming is awful. We should stop making games. And then they just stop making games. And then they go, oh, should we remake old games? No, people don't like remakes because, we're just redoing the same thing. It's just lazy. So we just, stop making new games, stop making old games. They just stop making games. Then see how we go. Then see when the atrophy sets in. All of a sudden, people will be stuck with the same games for longer than they thought would ever happen, and they'll go, I like that new hope on the horizon, even if it turns out to be something totally different because I had totally misaligned expectations. You know, hope for the future is very important. You know, Starfield could come out. It could. Star Citizen. I don't even start there. Yeah. Oh, is there any zombies sneaking up on me? Having no audio is like it's a bit. You. Okay. So yeah, tell me what you think. If you're at this point of the video, like and subscribe because you're an absolute legend. Because you know, I just go off on tangents at times. It's totally uncontrollable. I did have a plan coming in. I do have plans. I do think ahead at times. But you know, just go for a swim. Yeah, I do want a game where you can start with the infection. I do want to track the infection and its progress and feel as though... Oh, don't you dare. Oh, don't you dare. And feel as though the world is changing and I'm changing with it, rather than the world has changed, I've got to adapt now. So how do we survive? I want to be able to, you know, have an impact in terms of, you know, who lives and who dies and the sort of which people we save and which ones we don't. Do we get to our girlfriend's place and save her before her zombie neighbor kills her? Or, you know, we get there too late because we were distracted because this old lady was about to get mauled and we saved her and then we had to get in the car and then it took too long and then we got there too late and then she didn't make it. I'd like a bit more... Again, it doesn't have to be especially morbid. I do like, again, generally more upbeat post-apocalypse just because it feels less draining on my psyche. But I think... Yeah, as going forward, I do feel as though an Unreal Engine 5 massive city, again, we could just, you know, steal the Matrix City. We'd probably do a better city than the Matrix City, really. But then have it so many people in it from the start. A fixed number of people, and then the infection begins and spreads, and they're all in different areas, and you have, you know, actually hunting down the zombies, trying to stop the infection from spreading, and then, oh no, it gets out of control. You know, it's just, I feel like it'd be a totally different zombie experience, and it's what I really, really want. And I do want the afterwards, you know, you still have to, you know, you're killing the zombies, and I mean, you're killing them anyway, but... And then I want the people, real humans fighting. I do think that's important. So that's one thing we have less of in Dead Island 2 is the human-to-human fighting, which... Interesting, considering we've moved from Papua New Guinea to America, that we have less human-to-human fighting. That said, not talking about Papua New Guinea and those things. Don't talk about that. Or is tomorrow that. Don't talk about that. They've got their own issues. But that said, it's like interesting. I'm glad there's no ranged zombies in terms of ones with guns. Yes, some games have zombies with guns. And the zombies in bloody Dead Island 1 could throw their bloody weapons at you and insta-kill you. That was so horrible. So horrible. I hate that. I mean, yeah, you got the slobbers can shoot, but it's not projectile vomit like Dying Light, bloody slobber dudes who just shoot like laser beams. But yeah, I do think the transformation of the world is really important. Either you do from the infection and then you transform, or you do more transformation in the post-apocalyptic world. So I feel like that's where Dying Light 2, I think it has strengths and weaknesses. In terms of the windmill part, actually breaking down and being destroyed, I think that's a positive. And the missiles hitting. But I feel like there could be a bit more in terms of you building things. Not necessarily just the outpost stuff. I mean, you actually building something of your own. They just had your own... I mean, every game does have to kind of come back to Minecraft a little bit. I think they do. Because there's more desolateness in Minecraft than most games, but you can build and create and have a foundation of your own. And I feel like games could benefit from that. Having your own little hub and having your own little area, which, you know, you can customize your own mansion, and then you can have it free of zombies, or you can have zombies come into it. You know, have a choice. Or you have specific zombies you're trying to, you want to farm, so you want them to spawn, so you have to create an environment that suits them. Like a zoo. Like a Planet Zombie Zoo. Bam. Yeah, so many different things that can be done. So many ideas that haven't been fully explored, or been explored in different circumstances and different styles of zombie games. They could just go much bigger. And I hope they do, going forward. I hope we do see an advent of a totally different zombie experience. And I do think, you can look at a lot of webtoons for inspiration. I mean, let's be frank, there's plenty of those where the guy's like, his girlfriend becomes a zombie, but she's not like a zombie. She's like, like a zombie girlfriend. Yes, that is a thing. And she gets stronger and stronger. And I think there's a lot of progression styles from the webtoons, which are really good in terms of the evolution of the zombies over time and how they get stronger and stronger, and some of them get, crazy strong. I feel like part of that evolution and that time could be incorporated in games, especially open world games. I'd really like it if, again, you sort of get that with Dead Rising as you get more sort of stronger variants exposed into the environment. And here you do as well with the Butcher appearing more often because you've discovered it. As you discover the enemies, they appear. But I do feel like there could be an even harder difficulty and even more powerful enemies as they go forward. Like Apocalypse difficulty mode where, they just mutate in uncontrollable ways and they mix together things, or they, get multiple elements and things like that. And you could do, so many different stuff. They've got skill cards or something. Be really interesting to see. And you could have PvP, even though PvP in this would be like broken, so much drop kicking. But it'd be interesting. It'd be fun. I just, I feel like if it's not too much effort, depends on how much, it is. I don't mind these little extravagant foyer, flourishes and trying different stuff. So I think that's good. And then people, criticize all that stuff and just focus on one thing. It is what it is. You can go either way. But I think it's important to see what it is. It is what it is. You actually see it and not be like, I don't know, ultra nihilistic. So yeah, what do I want you to take away? There's a lot more to go. Zombies, I feel like, I don't think we've, you can say we've barely scratched the surface. I feel like we're at, on the zombie game development cycle, I feel like we're at about 3 or 4 out of 10. So we're working our way up. Now, this game itself, I think it's an 8 out of 10 game because it worked perfectly fine on PS5 and I've enjoyed it a lot, and I platinumed the bloody game. So, I mean, that's as big as an endorsement as I can give, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, buy the damn game. Unless, you want to wait till it's on sale, totally perfectly fine. Again, time is your weapon as a gamer. Everything gets better with time in terms of prices, except, some games die. And then your experience is less unless you played it early on. But then again, maybe some games improve a lot with updates. So I do think, it's a bit silly to, as soon as the game's released, just decide then and there whether it's worthwhile. The reality is that things do change with time, and developers do listen occasionally. Not all of them. But, yeah, so it's a bit silly. And since most games have a day one patch anyway because of the piracy stuff, even though that's really just overplayed. Yeah. Platinum isn't too bad. I'd say go for it. Game is really good, in my opinion. On PlayStation 5, it's really good. See, you gotta put this little bit of, just contextualizing, just a little bit, just to make it seem like you're not an idiot, just make it simple, very simple. Yes, I criticized Angry Joe. It is what it is. That's fine. I don't agree on everything he says, I do like his reviews. I do like the whole team sort of style. So yeah, I watch lots of different review people, so I do disagree with most of them most of the time anyway. But yeah, I do appreciate the having it a take. So that's why I have opinions, because I think it's more worthwhile to have opinions than to be on the fence. Yeah, so it's been Frosty510. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Yeah. Bye the damn